Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're jumping right into the complex and honestly, largely hidden sociocultural dynamics of religious conversion in the Middle East and North Africa. We're going to be basing this on a meticulously detailed book called Breaking the Silence. And we're going to unpack the layered reality of what actually happens when individuals in these regions decide to change their faith. We'll look at the systemic hurdles they face and some really surprising challenges they bump into even when they think they've finally found safety.
Okay, let's kick things off with a number that is just staggering. According to researcher David Radford, an estimated 8 to 10 million Muslims have converted to Christianity over the past 2 decades. That is a massive demographic shift. Yet, it's a phenomenon that is occurring almost entirely in the shadows.
Let's move to Section 1, the transformative journey. Inner peace, outer chaos.
Now, you might be wondering how that actually plays out day to day. Well, this entire journey is built on a really deep paradox. While making this shift often brings someone a profound sense of internal spiritual peace, that exact same internal calm triggers severe and sometimes incredibly violent external chaos. So converts are essentially forced to live a double life. There's this massive fracture between their public persona, where they're pretending to adhere to their former faith literally just to survive in society, and their private reality of practicing Christianity in absolute secret. They are constantly having to balance this deep internal conviction with the intense, crushing pressure of cultural expectations. It is a really heavy psychological burden.
That brings us to Section 2, the cost of conversion, societal consequences.
So what happens when that private reality gets exposed? Well, converts experience what is basically a brutal gauntlet of persecution. We're talking about everything from total family rejection, like literally being expelled from their own homes, to psychological threats and total social isolation. The harsh reality includes physical violence, severe economic discrimination, where discovering their faith means they are instantly fired from their jobs, and even legal prosecution. It touches literally every single pillar of a person's life.
To really ground this modern-day suffering, the author brings in a deep historical context, with this poignant quote from the early Christian writer Tertullian. It's a sobering reminder for us that this kind of intense societal pushback and persecution is actually deeply woven into the historical fabric of the faith itself. So it's not exactly a new phenomenon, but it is currently playing out right now with some really devastating real-world consequences.
And this systemic punishment isn't just theoretical. It is grounded in very real case studies. Take the story of a guy named Ahmed. Ahmed was a government worker. When his new faith was exposed, it cost him his marriage, literally annulled through a court ruling. Then, his faith was exposed at his workplace, which instantly halted any chance of promotion, and he was effectively punished by being exiled to a distant province in Upper Egypt. He was forced into this deep social isolation where the local community just flat out refused to even interact with him. It's this cascading, inescapable wave of punishment.
Which leads right into Section 3, legal and systemic barriers. Systemic erasure.
Beyond the devastating personal loss we just talked about, converts face systemic legal persecution that basically erases their new identity in the eyes of the state. Looking at a 2021 case study in Jordan, we can see exactly how civil and Sharia laws intersect to strip converts of fundamental human rights. Marriages can be outright annulled by the courts. Child custody can be forcibly transferred away to Muslim relatives. Converts suddenly become legally ineligible to inherit any property, and their electronic ID cards remain permanently locked to Islam, meaning the state literally refuses to even recognize their existence as Christians.
Let's hit Section 4, the burden on children, the most vulnerable members.
Because, as you can imagine, this systemic erasure doesn't just stop with the adults, it cascades right down to the children. The text shares this absolutely heartbreaking story of a young child referred to as D. Now, at home, this child was taught to say really simple prayers, like, "Thank you, Jesus." But when D innocently repeated this phrase at school, it led to immediate bullying from classmates, bullying that was actually encouraged by the other parents, and unjust punishment from the teachers. This perfectly illustrates how that painful double life is forced upon kids, who suddenly face immediate danger just for simple, innocent expressions of their private faith.
So, facing total societal, legal, and systemic rejection, we kind of have to ask the logical question here. Where on earth do they go? If the state doesn't recognize you, your family kicks you out, and your employer fires you, where do you find sanctuary?
And that brings us to Section 5, a complicated new home, the sanctuary paradox.
You would probably expect the established Christian church in the region to be this perfect, welcoming, safe haven. But instead of an immediate embrace, converts frequently hit a massive wall of cultural and spiritual shock. They face rejection and deep suspicion from existing church members who doubt their motives.
There's a total lack of tailored teaching to help them transition. And honestly, perhaps most disturbingly, they face the exploitation of their deeply personal, traumatic stories for fundraising by external organizations.
Take this tragic case from the book about a Syrian refugee convert. He had just arrived in a new country after a grueling, exhausting journey. A support organization met him at the airport, but they demanded he immediately record a promotional testimony for their fundraising efforts. And when he asked if he could just rest first, they literally abandoned him at the airport. I mean, no way, right? But it happens. This is the heartbreaking reality of the sanctuary paradox, seeking a home but finding exploitation instead.
Section 6. Fostering true unity. Bridging the gap.
So how do we fix this? How do communities actually bridge this massive cultural gap and build a true refuge? Well, the research points to a really powerful resolution. Rather than demanding converts strip away their entire cultural heritage, host communities need to recognize that there are deeply overlapping cultural values between Islamic and Christian traditions. We're talking about shared values like generosity, deep respect for others, honoring parents, and diligence in work. Recognizing and integrating those shared values, that is the real bridge to building genuine unity.
So the crucial takeaway here is that a successful sanctuary is absolutely not about forced assimilation or erasing a person's cultural identity. True unity is about culturally sensitive support. It requires mutual respect, honest, non-exploitative backing, and tailored teaching that respects exactly where a person came from while guiding them where they want to go.
As we wrap up this explainer on the really complex realities of religious conversion, it leaves us with a profound, lingering thought. When community, the law, and a person's deeply held identity collide head-on, what does true sanctuary really mean? It's a question that challenges us to reevaluate the universal nature of belonging and exactly how we choose to treat those who have sacrificed everything to seek refuge. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer.